Is there a white genocide in South Africa?
No, there's no sign of it, never has been. In fact, whites are economically the strongest group. They benefited from democracy more than anybody else. 64% of all boardrooms in South Africa are still white.
Unfortunately for the Americans, they've disrupted us very little. Protectionism. The last time it was sort of tried seriously by countries was led to the Great Depression. The great achievement of South Africa at the G20 was a strong reaffirmation.
Why isn't Donald Trump coming tomorrow? Because he has a 4-year-old mentality, and he's having a tantrum.
The vast majority of people killed on farms in South Africa are black. Where is the concern about them?
The concern is that there are white farmers who have had violence committed against them, and they're being threatened. They're being threatened every single day. There's 59 people, and you're triggered about 59 people, and I don't know why.
I haven't mentioned anything about 59 people. Why are you only concerned about white people?
Hey, lovely people, and particularly a quick word to my American friends who might be tempted to believe what Donald Trump is saying about South Africa, my home country, where I happen to be right now. Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called AfriForum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid.
Is there a white genocide in South Africa?
No, there's no sign of it, never has been. In fact, whites are economically the strongest group. They benefited from democracy more than anybody else. 64% of all boardrooms in South Africa are still white. The average income of white South Africans are vastly higher than black South Africans. No. They have better schools, they have better education, private health care. This is the land of milk and honey if you're white.
Has any land been expropriated in South Africa without compensation since the first all-race election in this country?
I'm not aware of anyone. Not a single farm that I'm aware of was expropriated without compensation since 1994.
So how do we interpret President Trump's executive order?
It is possible that South Africa has offended the United States with his policy on the Palestinians, and it could be that with his policy on Russia, the ambiguities of those policies and its relationship with the Chinese. It could be. I think that does play a role. But there was something very, very sensitive that was touched upon. And in South Africa, right-wing groups, so-called civil society groups, we know that they have access to the Trump administration because they claim that. And if you listen to what Trump has said, it corresponds exactly with the genocide narrative that they sell and that they market, and that whites are victims of the democratic system and the constitution of South Africa and legislation. So there's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump says and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid I have to believe them when they say they have direct access to the Trump administration, and we see it in what Trump has been doing.
Unfortunately for the Americans, they've disrupted us very little. Protectionism. The last time it was sort of tried seriously by countries was led to the Great Depression. The great achievement of South Africa at the G20 was a strong reaffirmation of multilateralism. So the majority of the world's big economies are committed to multilateralism.
What's the worst that they could do from a trade perspective? Because he's looking for vengeance.
Nothing. We can do more damage to them than they can do to us. If they block trade, a lot of that trade is coming from American investments in South Africa. They can't, if they want to block the platinum group metals, they're welcome to. That's something we can sell anywhere. America got quite a severe defeat in this whole G20 saga.
Why isn't Donald Trump coming tomorrow? Because he has a 4-year-old mentality, and he's having a tantrum. He's having a tantrum. What is the tantrum? That the rest of the world says, we don't want a king. As President Lula said, we don't need an emperor. He would come here as just one of 20 leaders, or 21. He doesn't want that. He's having a tantrum. So this rebalancing is happening. He's having a particular tantrum, by the way, because the United States is in a deeply neurotic funk. You know what the cause of that neurosis is? China. A wonderful, brilliant civilization, 4,000 years old plus. It's been a unified state with brilliant statecraft for more than 2,000 years. Unlike Europe, in which every country of Europe fought every other country of Europe every year for 1,000 years. Can you imagine? Britain couldn't keep its hands off any place for more than a year or two at a time. It had to go beat up somebody. And the United States doesn't even take a year off. I don't know the truth yet. It could be an accident, but I don't think so. Today, a major refinery in Venezuela suddenly exploded. That seems a lot like the CIA to me. I don't guarantee it. We don't have any more news. But last week, President Trump said he had assigned the CIA to operations inside Venezuela, and a week later, suddenly the biggest refinery blows up. So the United States can hardly go a week at a time without trying to kill somebody. And by the way, we learned every trick we know from the British, who did that for 200 years before that. So that's where the geopolitics comes in. What Adam Smith is saying in 1776 is we need to look forward to a future in which there is equal force, mutual respect, social justice. A man named James Watt, working at the University of Glasgow, fittingly at a university, stuck a condenser on a steam engine that had been invented decades before, and suddenly the steam engine became incredibly efficient, low cost, and suddenly the industrial age was feasible because of that great invention of the steam engine. That happened, that commercial steam engine of James Watt, which is why we talk about megawatts today, because of Mr. Watt and the power that his steam engine brought. That came in 1776, and Britain was the first country to industrialize, and it really did beat up the rest of the world after that, because the industrialization, the power that came with that, the industrial military led to a worldwide imperialism that dominated the 19th and the first part of the 20th century. And at its apogee, the British Empire had 1/4 of all the people in the world under British imperial domination. So I think that so I was going to say Europe destroyed itself in 2 civil wars, which we call World War I and World War II. And by the end of the Second World War, Europe was so broken that decolonization came. Not, by the way, because it was inevitable had there not been the wars, but Britain was bankrupt at the end of 1945 after 2 world wars. And Europe had lost any claim whatsoever, not that it deserved it ever, but any claim that it was a civilizing mission or anything else. Not only was it a completely reckless and cruel incivility of the imperial age, but they couldn't even within Europe behave with any decency and slaughtered tens of millions of people. So at the end of World War II, imperialism wasn't quite over, though. Europe lost its colonies step by step. Sometimes there were wars of decolonization in Africa. Sometimes it went more quickly and somewhat peacefully. It all depended. But there was one more empire that was going to stand, and that was the United States empire, because the U.S. became a world empire, and not only a world empire in 1945, and again, having learned the tricks of the trade from Britain, it was a world empire that aspired to dominate the world. And the policy of the United States was there should be no rival. So this was not quite possible because one major power, the Soviet Union itself, did not want to be dominated by the United States. And rather than making peace between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, which were allies in World War II, remember that, they were allies. The U.S. and Britain said, we're enemies of our ally, the one that had actually broken the back of Hitler's army, because the Soviet people lost 27 million in World War II. They bore the brunt of World War II. They defeated Hitler, but the U.S. and Britain did not know how to make peace. They said the Soviet Union's the new enemy, and a Cold War emerged. And I put a lot of the responsibility on the U.S. side for this.
Somebody tell the president of South Africa to shut the talking about he will not be bullied. Donald motherfucking Trump cut off your assistant because you all can't get y'all motherfucking shit together. People starving. You can't keep the goddamn lights on. People living in poverty. It's poor. People need gas. People need food. And you worried about Donald Trump cutting off assistants? No, motherfucker, you mad because Donald Trump cut off your assistant. Yeah, you looking a little bit too hefty. What the fuck you been eating with that USA assistant? What the fuck is it with the leaders of these countries acting like they are entitled to our tax dollars? Not only have they been getting paid decades, there's no fucking improvement. It's like they just been handed free money over and over and over again. It's like the money ain't even going to their people. The money is going to them in their mansions, in their cars, in their suits. And their own people are fucking starving. And when we finally get a president that stands up for America and says, we ain't giving you no more money. Oh, Donald Trump's the problem. We the problem. Oh, fuck America. If we won't give you no more goddamn money, how about you use your fucking resources and build up? Motherfucking Africa is bigger than goddamn you. Africa is 3 times the size of USA. I better link the fuck up like Wu-Tang Clan and make some shit happen. The audacity of him to get on stage talking about we would not be. First off, who is we? You are the bully to your people.
You're saying it's not true that some white farmers have been murdered?
No, it's not true that there is a genocide against white farmers.
Okay, whatever you call it, have white farmers been murdered?
Actually, how many
have violence been committed against white farmers?
How many white farmers, hold on a second, how many white farmers have been murdered in South Africa?
Several. I mean, they asked.
No, how many?
I don't know, several.
I know why you don't know. Because those numbers don't exist broken down by race.
I mean, I know this. I wouldn't trust the South African government to tell me. I know that.
How many black farmers have been murdered in South Africa?
Look, you guys are so triggered over 59 people.
No, I'm not.
After we left 20 million people in the country, I don't know why you're so triggered.
Haven't even brought up the white people that Trump picked out because they were white and told them they could come to the country.
How much racial killing are you going to condone?
There are 19,000 murders in South Africa. 36 were on farms. 7 of the farmers were victims. Okay, this is according to the South African police.
And you think the South African government is a credible source?
The other 29, hold on a second, the 29 victims who were included in the farm killings were farm employees who tend to be black. So the vast majority of people killed on farms in South Africa are black. Where is the concern about them?
The concern is that there are white farmers who have had violence committed against them, and they're being threatened. They're being threatened every single day. There's 59 people, and you're triggered about 59 people, and I don't know why.
I haven't mentioned anything about 59 people. Why are you only concerned about white people?
I'm only concerned about this story because these 59 people asked for status, they're getting status, and now everybody's freaking out about it.
They didn't ask for anything.
Hey, lovely people, and particularly a quick word to my American friends who might be tempted to believe what Donald Trump is saying about South Africa, my home country, where I happen to be right now. Him and Elon Musk are racist twats who have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because what they're doing is taking the word of a fringe racist group called AfriForum and other disaffected whites, disgruntled by the end of apartheid, feeling hard done by, and much like the Israelis, victimizing themselves when they are not victims at all, bitching about how land redistribution is racist against whites. These are such ignorant provocateurs, and it's going to backfire on them. South Africans' majority, the black majority, and it's a multiracial, multi-tribal society now, only own a tiny proportion of the land versus the size of their population. And while white South Africans make up 7% of the population, more or less, they own about 70% of the decent land. And so the redistribution of land is to address past inequities, and the vast majority of South Africans agree and understand why that's happening and that it's a good thing. It's also under a very strict mechanism. Now, not everyone agrees, of course, with the mechanism, but the principle is what racists like Musk and Trump are railing against here on behalf of a bunch of assholes who equate equality with oppression, because for so many years, decades and decades of the apartheid era, they were the oppressor. And as we know, whenever the oppressor looks at something like equality, it suddenly becomes oppression of him. So fuck Elon Musk, fuck these idiots from AfriForum. You probably know nothing about them, but this is a bunch of, the equivalent of your kind of Proud Boys hanging on to some past that never actually existed. And a past in which the vast majority of people in this country were oppressed, suppressed, and treated much like, fortunately not quite as badly as the Israelis treat the Palestinians. So this whole railing against South Africa, I'm going to add one more point. South Africans, on the whole, all of us, white, black, Indian, colored, which is not a term, is a specific term for those of you who might get offended by that, a specific racial group. We are very, very resilient people. As a country, we have gone through a great deal, both in terms of the early part and then the transition from the apartheid era to genuine multicultural democracy. And whatever Trump throws at us, we can handle. We can handle it because we've been through far, far worse in our history. And my hope is that South Africans all turn around with one voice and tell Trump to fuck off with his sanctions and his fucking withdrawal of aid and his tariffs and all of this stuff, because we can live through it. What I'm not sure about is whether Americans can. Because for the most part, all the stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy said recently about Americans being soft, not prepared to put in the hard graft, and all this stuff, I tell you, for the experience of most foreigners is true. Now, it's not true of every American I know. Some of them are the most hard-working, wonderful people in the world. But as a general principle, South Africans are far more resilient and able to withstand this kind of bullshit authoritarian pressure than any American population. So, to my fellow South Africans, let's stick this out. Let's stick up the middle finger to Trump and particularly to Elon Musk, because we know from his background that he left South Africa in the apartheid era and retains the racist bullshit that's motivating these people like Creel. And now that I'm in South Africa, I'm seeing their awesome, ridiculous tweets. Fuck those guys as well. They're the past. Most of us are the future, and it's a beautiful future.